Thank you all. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Creative Mornings. It's fun to be with you all this morning. And yes, to celebrate, I did design my own icon for this, mostly because I wanted to talk about the revolution of ideas. I'm so glad I scored revolution. I heard last month was ugly. I don't know what I would say. It's not my thing. I like things that look good. I like to make things look good. So what I wanted to talk about today is, really the revolution of the mind, the revolution of ideas, and how do we get more of these out of people's skulls and into the real world. And, I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the things I've learned over those 25 years in Silicon Valley that are sort of like baseline rules of engagement. And it really doesn't matter what your idea is. It can be a sculpture, it can be a software product, it can be a hardware product, it could be an airplane. It doesn't really matter. There's a similar set of things that you kind of go through that you need to do to really make an idea come to life. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those types of things. But first, a little about me. This is me. The last time I had a tie, 1970 something, and my mom's very cool Mustang, which was the first one off the line, and she sold it for like $200, sadly. I'm still griping about that. But I grew up in Silicon Valley in Redwood City, and I grew up in a very creative kind of environment. That's me. That's where my superhero complex came from. And I'm actually wearing that underneath this, so still. But I grew up in a very creative environment. I lucked out. In 7th grade, my parents bought me a computer in 1981. In 1981, that was pretty rare. Today, it's like pretty commonplace. But back then, that really was the thing that ignited really my imagination. I like to say that I think we need to put more people in front of Lego boxes and let them explore via imagination. That leads to innovations. That's where ideas come from. It's the birthplace of ideas. It comes out of your mind. So creativity is a big part of that. And we have a creative culture. Santa Fe is uniquely suited to this type of activity. And I know all of you are walking around with a bunch of ideas in your head that you haven't dumped out yet. So this talk is about how to activate some of that. So in my 25 years, I got to do a lot of cool things. This is Steve Wozniak. He's the co-founder of Apple. I got to work with him across 4 of my companies, including my last startup. So he was our advisor. It was really awesome. He did that, what's that show with all the nerds on TV? Big Bang Theory, right? So he did a show, actually, when we launched our company. The timing worked out just perfect that he was going to be on that TV show, and he live interacted with fans around the world using our social TV platform. So I got to do some really cool things with some really cool people, and I learned a lot across all of those startups. And I learned really what does it take? How do you get over fear? How do you do all these things that really is what it takes to make ideas come true? So I moved here. And I joined this group, Creative Santa Fe, a fantastic team of people. Really, part of my pie chart for moving here was to be more altruistic and try and help. So I've been taking my startup skills and knowledge and trying to work with the city. We created an initiative with Bon and Justin and Jeff over there called Startup Santa Fe to really create a whole new way of interacting and with the community and creating new opportunities from within the community to start new ideas. So we're working on a lot of that stuff, and Creative Santa Fe is just the perfect team to kind of help develop these kind of ideas. So I'm really excited that we moved here and we're part of this. And my wife Lynn and I actually moved here to start our own idea, a probiotic soda company. So we're here to do the same thing I'm telling you should do. So let's get into it. This is one of my favorite quotes, and of course this is the original geek. I don't know if you can all read that, but I'll read it for you. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. So really, knowledge is about the past, which is great, but really we need ideas that innovate us into the future. I like to say, what if the idea that you're holding on in your head is the one that saves us? We turn the earth into a toilet, we only have one. If you're hoarding that idea, they need to come out You need to get people around them. So I love this because imagination is the birthplace of ideas. This is where they all come from. We all are uniquely suited to tap into this and do something about these ideas. So stop hoarding them. Next slide. This is one of my favorite does anyone know who this is? You seen this? Okay. Elon Musk is one of those people that's truly in touch with his internal innovator. He's determined to change the way we go to space, to change the way we drive, to change the way we power things, and he wants to go to Mars. I absolutely believe that he will get us to Mars. Only because he came up with these ideas and he wants to see them true. He wants to see them manifest, right? So he's willing to do whatever it takes to make those things happen, whatever it takes. So again, I mean, each of us has this. He's a grand example. He's considered Tony Stark now. We're all not going to hit that, but everybody's idea is a real thing. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, you have the capability of getting it out. Next slide. This is another one. Anyone? J.K. Rowling, right? Harry Potter. I mean, here she was carrying this idea around in her head. She made it up on a train, right? Like in Manchester or something on a ride. What if that just rotted in there? Like all of us would have been robbed of the Harry Potter story, you know, which I think would be a travesty. But, you know, so again, I mean, getting these ideas out, they change people's lives. You know, this stuff matters to people. It doesn't matter if it's a cultural element or artistic or whatever your canvas is. Mine happens to mostly be software products. But it's still artistic. It's still something that's been created that wasn't there before. It still changes things. So all of these things are important, getting ideas out. Now, this is one of my favorite mad scientists. I thought about, like, I didn't want to bore everyone. I've gone to a lot of these things before, and I wanted to find a way to encapsulate some of these rules in a fun way. So I chose one of my favorite movies of all time, Young Frankenstein, as a framework to describe these things that I've learned. And I also think he kind of sort of represents in abstract form all of us. The mad scientist, is he dedicated enough to his crazy idea? You know, what does it take? What does it take to do this? You know, envision the creation, okay? This is the first thing, is really completely develop your concept before you bring other people into it. It's about really like thinking about what is the final product. What are you shooting for? What is the vision? You know, that's how you're going to get excited, other people excited about your idea anyway, which is the next step. But fully develop the idea. Think about all the ways that your idea intersects with what you're trying to do it with. You know, I often tell people that the difference between great products or great solutions and bad ones are dimensions. Most people are one-dimensional. Oh, I heard it on Fox News. It must be true, right? But if you start adding new dimensions to that, you start realizing, oh, that's bullshit. Actually, this is the real story. So dimensions give you further clarity. They give you more ideas about where you should be taking things. So again, understand what you're trying to create first. You know, really think about that. Now you need to find people that get it. All right, you need people around your idea, okay? Birthing an idea is something all of us are capable of. We're uniquely capable of it as a species, right? But it's a lonely proposition, right? You birth an idea, you have to raise the idea, okay? You need other people to collaborate on your idea. The worst thing an entrepreneur can do is not share that idea. And usually what that gets caught up in is fear that someone is going to steal your idea. Well, let me tell you something. I've been in Silicon Valley, and 100 people can have the exact same idea and you'll get 100 different executions. So it's how you look at the problem you're solving. It's what you tell the people to do that are working with you, right? Or collaborate on. Sometimes I tell people what to do. But the point being, you really need to find people that are great, that support your idea, that believe your vision. And then you start to create a narrative, a story. Your product or your solution or your idea exists within a framework, a narrative. And that's really the way to think about what you're doing. It's not a business plan. It's a story. And how do you want the story to evolve? What do you want people to think? How do you want them to feel? What's the essence of the thing? Why is it better than everything else out there? How does it differentiate? All these things start to come as you start to look at the different dimensions of it. And it gets easier to share your idea with others and pull them into it. And then you start to see something pretty magical happen, right? That's where critical mass starts to come in. The thing starts to move forward and grow. This is one of my favorite. Don't be afraid to fail fast, okay? Abby Normal, right? Innovator here. You know, again, don't get caught up with your idea. You know, you should always know what that long-term vision is, but you need to iterate. You need to move quickly, especially anymore. I mean, now it's expected. You know, you're gonna figure out what works. A lot of people hold back from doing what they want to do based on fear of what might happen. What if I fail? So what? What did you learn? You know, pick through, you know, I used to tell people, failure, are you kidding me? I've had startups that crashed so hard I couldn't find the black box, okay? Nothing, just dust, and everyone's just like, what happened? So fear, all that is a learning. That's a fast way to learn what works. So, you know, again, don't be afraid to fail fast. This is something that's an iterative process. This is how your idea gets better. Next slide. Don't quit too soon. You know, I have often seen a lot of startups do this, and it's sort of wrapped up in the same thing. Fear, iteration, sort of this idea that the thing that you first birthed was the perfect thing, you know, so you're defensive of the idea. You know, again, don't quit on it too soon. Again, I mean, these things take time to cultivate. There are anomalies, or at least they appear that way. They hit the market and everyone goes bananas and it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. That does happen, but it is the exception, not the norm. There's a process to build these things up, to get people excited about it, to build community around your idea. And that's how things begin to go viral, right? Of course, word of mouth travels faster than anything else. So again, it's important. Don't quit too soon. Stay dedicated to the idea. Besides, you're the person who birthed it. If not you to be passionate about continuing it forward, it's going to die. So again, don't give up too soon. Plan ahead. This is important, or you're going to get burned, right? The idea that, you know, planning is often something that people don't go through. And the planning gives you insights. It actually makes you psychic. It allows you to look into the future, right? So you avoid dumb things like this, where something just happens to you and you just didn't predict that this was going to be the outcome. So again, I mean, planning is absolutely essential, and really just the practice of it starts to do the thing that I mentioned earlier. Add more dimensions to the picture that you're painting. Give you a broader understanding of what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. And it works well for answering questions. People want to know more about your idea. What if it's an investor? It's always great when you've anticipated every question they're going to answer. You've presented that ahead of time, and they're left with things like, who do I write the check out to? Which is a better question than like, how does your business model work again? No, that's why I want to get them to that point. It's just like, sorry, was that Shawn, S-E-A-N, or? So anyway, plan ahead. The planning is very important. You know, it's business planning, sure, but that's just the stuffy side of it. Again, everything that you do in a plan is about figuring out how your story is supposed to end up. When you do a long-term strategy of your plan, what do you envision it is when it grows up? You know, that's how your plan should be thinking. What do you want people to think 5 years from now? I often tell people, if you really want to analyze great marketing strategy, analyze the CIA. Because they're actually the most effective marketing organization on the planet. They manipulate people into place, you know, they make people think certain things, you know, but actually that's what you're doing. You're trying to create a compelling movement that people accept your idea because it makes sense. You've thought it through. Plan ahead. Don't smother, mother. And this is important. Again, and this sort of goes back to an earlier point I made, like when people birth an idea, often what is also prevents them from finding other people to collaborate around the idea is defensiveness around the idea. So they'll actually smother an idea before they're given an opportunity to grow up, right? Which is the wrong thing to do. What you're really trying to do is try and figure out how you grow this thing up. What's the right way to nurture the idea into place? But again, you know, hoarding that and hugging over it and being defensive about it, it's going to die. And it will not find its evolutionary place, because really all ideas continue to grow and evolve. They iterate. It's never a destination, actually. It's a continuous process. So again, I mean, this is a super important thing that I've watched many, many startups blow it. And the problem is too, if you're not continuing to innovate and really work with the people that you're working with around that idea and really grow that idea, very often you miss the large market opportunity, or you actually miss what would have happened had you stayed on that track. I've watched that happen numerous times, where one company almost gets there, and then 18 months later, another company comes in and just took it all over. Why? Because they took it that one step farther. So again, I mean, understanding the nature of what an idea is. It is all of our opportunity to play God. We create something out of our mind, and we have a vision for what it becomes over time. So ideas are very powerful. This one I really like. Convert negativity into fuel. Okay? There's sort of a principle that I like to call like business judo, right? How is it that you take the opponent's energy and use it against them? Let them fly into the wall, you know? Negativity is almost like a human natural response in some people. You share an idea and they shit all over it, you know? And this happens, and it's like, it's not what you want, you know? You're actually looking for kind of feedback or validation, and it's all, of course, ego-based, right? You want that to be fed. So you are vulnerable if you listen to this stuff, right? Negativity, turn it around and use it into positive fuel. See if you can pick through it if there's anything useful. Most of the time there's not. But take that energy and do something positive with it. Besides, sometimes negativity, you will find a grain of truth in there or something that you'll go, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should explain it like this. So it's a super key thing. So I like to say, like, you know, in all these things, it's really also about listening. You're listening to your internal voice and you're listening to others, and you're trying to find a balance between the two. And then just get rid of the emotional stuff, because that's like a waste of your time and it'll hold you back. So, next slide. Shoot for the ideal. Okay. You know, I've often said, you know, I've looked at the meaning of these words, idea and ideal, and they claim that there's no relationship between these words. I beg to differ. You know, in technology, they have a thing called an MVP, a minimum viable product. So you're supposed to like get a product out to market with the least amount of capital, so you're lowering your risk. The problem is you end up with a lot of shitty products as a result of that, because people are actually like trying to get something out. They're not really thinking about the big vision. They want to get something out to see if it sticks. That's not actually what you want to do. I mean, the point for, you know, all of these big ideas is that you're shooting for the ideal. You know, what is the almost unachievable state that I want this idea to exist in? What's the perfect world that I can imagine? You know, a good company, company to pick on for this, which of course they've sort of redefined this by putting creatives in charge, is Apple. They never design any product by market research. They won't ask you what you want. They don't look at historical data. They don't care that phones have been selling for a long time. They're going to design a product that they would actually use. So they're going to vision something completely complete that you have no idea why you're even going to like this thing. But that's about a vision. That's about shooting for an ideal, not the minimum viable product. You're shooting for something that is really going to blow the market away. It's going to be exceptional. Your ideas are exceptional. They just need to be honed and grown up. But that's the right target. You know, no one ever like, oh, we're going to go to the moon, but we're going to shoot for just getting into space. How are you going to get to the moon? I mean, no, you've got to actually shoot for the highest common ideal, not the lowest common denominator. So this is actually my last slide. Next slide. I'll end on the cool black thing. But, so that's my speech. Any questions? Thank you.